Hey everyone, my name is Damon Kindred. I am a professional mortgage banker for the last 18 years, and I've spent the last 21 years in the corporate world with about 13 years of that in management. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to hit some of the keywords that I found in chapter 3 of the material that you're going through, and maybe try to share a little bit of my experience in this area. First, I'll try to go through it in the order that it is in your chapter as well. And the first thing I did want to point out is you really want to be careful not to underestimate that does sleep make you grumpy, because time and experience will tell you that quality sleep really does have a big effect on your mood and your attitude. And I'm always amazed at how many people, including myself, take that for granted, especially at a younger age, and don't get a good enough night of sleep, and it ends up wrecking their whole next day. But getting into your chapter, first thing that really stood out for me was the simple fact of being able to identify the difference between mood and emotions, right? So emotions are just your real natural reactions to things that happen around you. It's kind of involuntary. You can't really control how something makes you feel. Whereas your mood is a choice. You choose to be in a good mood, you choose to be in a bad mood or negative mood or positive mood. And it's important to know the difference, one, so that you can try to regulate yourself, but also you can regulate the people around you and be able to identify whether somebody's reacting in an emotional state or if they're just in a mood. Myself as a manager, have had to learn the difference, because really and truly, as a manager, if you get to know your people and you know what's important to them, you can pick up on things that can help change their emotional state, but they have to make a decision to change their mood. So it's really important to know the difference between those two. After that, I really kind of went to the next thing on page 54, that broaden and build model. Is really kind of talking about how emotions are contagious, right? So, if you've ever been in an environment, work environment, school environment, people tend to flock together. Birds of a feather flock together. Negative people tend to hang around negative people. Positive people tend to hang around positive people. So that's another thing. As a manager, one thing that a lot of workplaces lack is positive reinforcement, right? People are very much more likely to tell you when you've done something wrong than they are to praise you when you've done something well. So in a work environment, the more praise that you put out there, typically the better overall office environment. On page 56, I highlighted a small little section in there that I think is really important. It says, happier people perform better and have higher incomes. And I think that's really true for two reasons. One, when you're happy, you tend to work a little bit harder. You don't let things bother you as much, so you get more done when you're in good, positive mood and happy in the workplace. And people like you more when you're happy. So the higher income piece comes from, one, you're more productive, and two, more people like you. So those are the two primary ways to get promoted and make more money, is to be productive at your job and to have people like you. So being able to control your mood and be more of a positive person can really help accelerate your earnings in your career as well. The emotional labor section that's on page 57, the reason that kind of stood out to me is, it is work, labor, work. Every job has pluses and minuses. And there's a section in there that talks about acting, deep acting and surface acting. So surface acting is kind of, just having to be nice to people when you really could care less about what's going on in their life. Whereas deep acting is a little bit where you actually get yourself into the mood to perform the way that they expect you to perform at work. So I kind of think of surface acting as being at a job where you're selling a product that you wouldn't use yourself, but you have to convey to other people that this is a great product in order to get it sold. Whereas deep acting is more where you're gonna sell a product or a service that you actually believe in. So that's something that's important, because even though it's really easy to say you want to find a job that you're passionate about, it's a lot easier said than done. But if you're on a job where you have to do a lot of surface acting, where you basically have to pretend, then it does really lead to burnout really quick, because there's an emotional strain that's put on a person for trying to present something in a way that they don't really believe in. So then I want to get into the concept of emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence varies from person to person. It is something that can be learned and practiced. So you can actually read books and get coaching on how to identify emotional traits. Just like we talk about the difference between emotion and mood, you can actually improve how you interact with people through coaching. But one main concept of emotional intelligence is knowing yourself, self-awareness, right? Because you always have to start with yourself first. If you're not balanced, if you're not in control of your emotions and your moods, it becomes much more difficult to almost impossible to influence other people's moods and emotions, at least in the way that you want to, right? So you always want to be self-aware of what's going on with you, and learn tricks and techniques to improve your ability to control your own emotional state and your moods. Part of that control is a concept that's on page 61 called reappraisal. So this is the ability to tone down a negative event, or actually take something that could be viewed as negative and spin it into a positive. So they use the term see the silver lining in every situation. So some people are more naturally positive than others. An example of reappraisal would be, let's say you get called in to work on a day that you were supposed to be off. So most people would look at that and say, oh man, I didn't want to work today, I had to be off. But reappraising the situation, you can't, if they're going to pay you for that time, especially if you get overtime or something, you can spin that to say, well, I really didn't want to work today, but I'm going to get a little extra money in my paycheck because of it. Something like that, just to lessen the blow, or turn it around and spin it into a positive, is something that can really help you with your emotional intelligence. Emotional contagion on page 62 is kind of that mob mentality process, right? Where, one person can create a chain reaction. So, I've been in a lot of meetings where a question will be raised, and all of a sudden the entire meeting just basically turns into a bitch session, because somebody caught the emotion of somebody else, and now everybody's blown out of control and going crazy and things like that. So really important, whether you're an employee or a manager, especially for managers, to be able to nip that type of stuff in the bud, right? When you see things going negative, you have to find a way to spin it, reappraise the situation for everybody, level them back out, and get them back moving towards the actual goal. Then, getting close to the end, page 64, I did want to touch on this concept of mindfulness. And so this is really kind of defined as just being aware of being in the moment, not worrying about what happened before, what happened after, kind of a focus. So it's kind of the opposite of multitasking. And mindfulness is really important in interacting with other people, because one concept that it includes is paying attention, delaying judgment and paying attention. A lot of conversations you have with people, you can be in a conversation with somebody, and while they're talking, you're spending the whole time thinking about what you're going to say next, and you're not even really paying attention to what they're saying. So being mindful is the ability to sit back, focus on what somebody else is saying, and then actually prepare your response appropriately, rather than just spending your time figuring out what you're going to say to somebody before you've even heard what they have to say to you. And the ability to be mindful and listen to people, it allows you to be more empathetic to what other people are going through and pick up easier on the types of things that are affecting their mood or their emotions. So all of it ties in to the emotional intelligence piece. And that's really probably all of the stuff that I can hit in the amount of time that I have. I was only supposed to go 10 minutes. I'm already a little bit over that. I hope this information helps support what you're learning in your chapter, and I wish you all success in your class. Thank you.